All right. So for today's live, I will be covering all the updated topics. Okay. So if you wanted to give this paper a try as well, the link I already put it in the chat. Okay. I pinned it there. So if you wanted to try out the paper together with me, you can click on the link and give it a try. So I will wait for 2 minutes, and then I will be start solving here. So all these questions that you're seeing right now, okay, these are all from the updated syllabus. So you will have sketching the graphs, okay, and then involving turning points, your differentiations, okay, all these kind of topics I will be covering here today. So together with your quadrant, the newly added one, like question like this here, okay, and then sketching out your sine, cosine, tangent graph, all this will be covered in today's live stream. Okay, so these are the questions that I selected from the papers. Okay, there's a few more inside of it. Okay, if I have time, I will do those as well. Okay, so if you wanted to try the paper, you can click on the link that I pinned in the comment section. Okay. So in 2 minutes time, I will be start solving. Okay. If you did try the recent papers, okay, all the recent past year, you will notice that this time around, instead of those basic simultaneous equation, you will notice this time around they involve quadratic, which means that you will get 2x results. Then because of it, when you substitute the respective x, you will get different y results here. That's why the marks that they allocate for this particular section has increased. So there's this easy one here with 4 marks, and the second type of question here with 7 marks. Okay. So you can have a look first, then I will start solving in 1 minute's time. Okay. All right, so let's get started with our question number 1 here. Okay, I actually covered this paper before, but I noticed that not much students actually scroll back to the video library. So some of you guys might miss out on this particular set. So this particular set of paper is actually not prepared by me. Okay, it is actually from Cambridge. So they purposely compiled about 30 questions surrounding the latest topic. So whatever that you're seeing right now are all from Cambridge. Okay. So let's have a look at the first question. Okay. So you notice that they both shared something in common. And in our case here, the y is repeating. Okay. So you have y here and y here. So when you run the substitution, okay, you label them as 1, 2. Okay, since they both are y here, so you can set sub 1 into 2. So you will have 3x minus 2 equals to x squared here. So your task is to arrange it as a quadratic equation. So you ended up with x squared minus 3x plus 2 equals to 0. So key in your calculator. Okay, for those who forgotten how to do it, just press mode, search for EQN, and then choose the third one, which it shows you ax squared plus bx plus c. So the a that you're keying in here will be 1, b will be negative 3, and c is 2. So do that, you should end it up with your first results here. You got the negative 2, and then the other one is minus 1. So x equals to 2 and x equals to 1 is the 2 respective answers that you should be getting. Okay, with that sorted out, put it in. Okay, and then remember to run your calculation because you need to find their respective y. Okay, so when your x is 2, your y will be 3, 2, minus 2. 6 minus 2 should end up with 4, while on the other hand, when your x is 1 this time around, okay, your y will be 3, 1 minus 2, which is 1 at the end. So this will be your final answer here. Okay, so let me check the chat, see whether there's anything that's missing. Yes, the live stream will be available. Okay, and for those who's wondering this paper, okay, I already pinned the link to the paper here. Okay, you can check from the chat there. Okay, so rotation question, yes, I'm covering it later. So there's some examples that was compiled by Cambridge here. Okay, you can look back to it later on. Okay, so this is our question 1 here. Okay, very not too challenging, I would say. And then we're moving on to section number 2 here. Okay. So the graph is y equals to 3x squared plus 7x minus 4. Okay, and y plus 2x equals to 10, intersected at the point A and B. So this time around, they purposely phrase it in a different way so that it's a disguise for a simultaneous equation here. Okay, so what we are doing now is to make the subjects the same first. So if I were you, I will write this thing down. Okay, the keyword is intersected, which means that these two lines will actually touch each other later on. Okay, so I will readjust this equation that they gave us here into something else. Hold on, it's not popping up. All right, it's here now. Okay, so your equation after the readjustment, you ended up with 10 minus 2x here. So this is your equation 1 and this is your equation 2. Okay, with that, okay, run sub 2 into 1. So again, you get 10 minus 2x equals to 3x squared plus 7x minus 4. Rearrange it properly, then you will get your results here. Okay, it doesn't matter whether you're bringing everything to the front or the back. So personally, I will try to make my quadratic positive. So since 3x squared is at the back, I will try to shift everything to the back here. That's how you ended up with -4 and -10. When you run your respective calculation, this will be your final results here. Okay. So again, it's a quadratic, which means that you can run your calculation using a calculator. So key in A as 3, 9 as your B here, while your C is -14. Okay. And then you notice that they ask you to keep your answers in 2 decimal place. Okay. So with that, you will get your answers of x as 1.2995564, the first answers. And then to make it into 2 decimal place, you will end up with 1.13. Okay. And then when you press it again, get your x2's results. X number 2 will be -4.13 or 4.12995564. Okay, after correcting it to 3 significant or 2 decimal place that they requested here, you ended up with -4.13. So this is your respective results here. Okay. E63, the trigo function ASTC method later. Yeah, sure, I will do that as well. No worries. Okay. Okay. So I will be covering the whole set, so no worries. Okay, you can drop by later or you can check back to the stream later. when your x is 1.13, you need to find your respective results. Do we need to do quadratic for marks in Q2? Because they requested the 2 decimal place, preferably you write it down. Okay, just to show them how do you get to these 2 results here. So for everyone's reference, if you wanted to write the quadratic down, it goes like this. Show them that you use negative b plus minus b squared minus 4ac. Okay, your c here will be negative 14 and then over 2a. So just attach this, okay? You don't have to show like the detailed steps, okay? Because once you key in everything, your result should be how much? Let me double check. You should end up with negative 9 plus minus 249 and 6. You write these 2 things down, then you'll be able to secure the full marks. Very good question. Asked by Yuan Fong. Yes. Okay. So substitute it accordingly. What do you get as a y? You guys would like to try? When you put in 1.13, make sure you follow the decimal requested by the question. Okay, then you'll be able to secure your full marks here. So 10 minus 2, 1.13, you should end it up with 7.74. Okay. So when you try the other one, when you put in x equals to negative 4.13, okay, you will end it up with different results here. Okay, that is about 18.26. Okay, you need to substitute the respective value correctly. Okay, for those who just came in, if you are not sure which paper I'm solving, okay, this is actually an extra worksheet prepared by Cambridge. Okay, for everyone's reference, I already pinned down the link to the document in the chat. So you can just scroll through the chat at the top there, I pinned it already. Just click on it, then you will have access to this paper as well. Okay, I would say this is a must for you to prepare for your exam. Okay, the question that they attach here are all curated to the latest syllabus. So if you are able to solve this, means that you wouldn't have any trouble going through the exams. Okay, so this is for question 1 and number 2. Okay, the detailed steps and the respective results. If you have any question, you can let me know in the chat. Okay, the simultaneous is updated. So this time around, they involve quadratic calculation. So you will notice in example 1 and example 2 here, they both have 2 different x and 2 different y. Okay, how is this for 7 marks? Because it involves quadratic, and you need to show them this formula because they ask you show all your steps. And then for the respective values that you have gotten, you need to correct it to 2 decimal place. Okay, after 2 decimal place, run your substitution accordingly. Okay, it applies to your y as well. So you must make sure all your answers is correct in order to secure the full marks. All right. So this is for number 2. Okay. So the next type of question here is from section number 3. Okay, there's 2 ways that they will assess you on this type of question here. Either they ask you to label, like they gave you the equation and then ask you to label it, or they will give a graph space for you and then they ask you to draw it out. So this one that you are doing here, or the one that they included in this worksheet here, is the easier one, where you are just checking like which point makes sense to you. Okay, so in section A here, where you have y equals to 2 minus x squared, okay, for this particular section, okay, the usual way that I always approach this type of question, okay, is to label down a table. Okay, maybe I put x and y here. Okay, they don't really restrict you on how to get this done. Okay, but try not to guess it your way out on this. Okay, try to substitute some points okay, makes sense to the values that they gave you here. So if let's say 0, okay, is the value that I set for x today, 0 being squared, it will not affect the results at all. So you ended up with 2 here. So as I increase the value, maybe today I set my x as 2. Okay, so you're going to key in 2 minus bracket 2 being squared. Okay, you will get negative 2. So usually what I do is if I substituted 0, I will try to put one positive value and one negative value. So maybe this time around, I try to put in negative 3 to work it out, let's say. So when you substitute it, make sure you key in the correct results. So it goes by 2 negative 3 squared. 2 minus negative 3 being squared. So you ended up with negative 7 here. Okay, try to make sense to your answers. So I try to put in my values here. If let's say when x is 0, y is 2, okay, this a here seems correct by substituting the first point. And then I have another contender here, which is e. Okay, e looks like it is valid as well. Okay, then when I try to put in some other value, like let's say when x is 2, I ended up with negative 2 now. So this one here, if let's say 2 is here, when you trace it up, clearly the y results is not negative, which means that A is not the graph that we are looking for. So this is the wrong one. Okay. So let's look back to E here. Let's say our 2 is here, and then we ended up with negative 2. Okay, and then I try to double check my negative 3. Because it's not to scale, okay, whatever points that you're labeling down is just for your checking. So when it's negative 3, okay, it kind of makes sense. Okay, it shows negative 7 here. Okay, like I said, it's not to scale. Okay, we are just using it as a reference. So our section A's answers here will be E. Okay, try to run some point. Okay, substitute different points in to double check. Okay, then you will get your answers here. So this E has been taken for our section A here. Okay, and then let's have a look at our B that they gave us. So it is 2 to the power of negative x here. Please pay attention to the negative. Okay, so when you run your substitution, make sure you don't miss out the negative, else it will causes your answers to be wrong. So like I said, I will put in 0 again as my x. So when it's 0, you ended up with 2 to the power of negative 0. There's no negative 0 here, so you ended up with 0 as well. Okay, sorry, it should be 1. Okay, because power of anything, okay, as long as power of 0, it should be 1 here. So with 0, 1, okay, let's have a look. What are the potential points that we can be taking? Okay, so 0, 1, it's either F or D here, because when x is 0, y is 1. So to further check out our results, so I will be substituting random values again. If let's say it is 3 today, so you key in 2 to the power of negative 3. Okay, you ended up with 0.125. Okay, and when it is negative 3, however, kindly take note, because of the negative being here, when you substitute it accordingly, you ended up with negative 3. Okay, so when you key in accordingly, you will get your respective results as 8. So what this 2 extra point tells us was that if let's say 3 is here, it is getting closer and closer to 0. However, when it is negative 3, okay, it connected up to 8. So this is how you double check whether it is D or F here. So with these 2 extra points now, we can verify that for section number B here, the graph is pointing towards F. Okay. So that's how you figure out this. Okay, so this is A and B. Okay, C is their favorite question. Okay, it's actually a asymptote graph. Okay, kindly take note. Okay, our x is at the denominator. You're asking, how did I get the -3? Oh, you randomly substitute it. Okay, you randomly substitute it. Okay, someone is asking what this topic from. Okay, this topic is from our E2. Okay, let me paste it in. Okay, this is the newly added syllabus. So they readjusted, and this is falling under your exercise number 211. Recognize, sketch, and interpret graphs of function. Okay, you are substituting random values. Okay. Okay. Do you have any last exam tips? Okay, if you are able to solve this set and you did enough past year, you should be okay for the exams. Okay, and also one more thing, the threshold is super low lately because of COVID. So as long as you don't perform badly, okay, if you're able to get like 60 to 70 marks, generally you will get A. Okay. So for the next one, okay, when you substitute it into the table again, this time around, please remember, you cannot put your x as 0. Okay, reason behind is that the x is currently assigned to the denominator. Okay, please pay attention to these details here. Okay, whenever x is at the denominator, you cannot put it as 0. So immediately, I will know that my graph is either B or C. Okay, because if it touches at 0, you will get math error. You can try to key in 2 divided by 0. Okay. So we put in 2 over 0, you get math error. So this is the reason behind that. Okay, this graph will not touch 0. So the only contender for this graph here will be B or C. And then when you try to run in random values, let's say when x is 1 today, you will end up with 2. Okay, and then when I put in -1, you will end up with -2. So with these two information, one positive and one negative, you'll be able to trace the results already, because when x is 1, okay, it's connecting at 2. However, when x is -1, it will connect to -2. So for section C here, your answers for this graph will be B. Okay, so that's how you get your answers for this section A, B, and C. So you must learn how to draw that out as well. Okay, it means 60 to 70%. Yeah, 60 to 70% out of 100. You have to convert the total score into 100. Not 60 over 70 out of 200, for sure. Okay, so I'm looking through the chats. Okay, so this is how you solve A, B, and C. Any question? You can ask in the comment right now. I'm checking it. Just so the whole worksheet and past year. Yeah, worksheet and past year is always the best combination to help you to pass your exam. Okay, the link to the question is at the comment I pinned. Okay. Okay, let's look at the next one. They asked you to sketch this out. Okay, this question number 4 here is the easy one because they don't involve quadratics. Okay, so all you need to do is to make it into your y equals to mx plus c arrangement. Okay, then you'll be able to solve. So if I were to readjust this, I will keep my 3y on the side first. Then I get -2x plus 18. The last step is to get rid of the 3 that you have there. So you ended up with -2 over 3x and 18 divided by 3. Kindly take note, the 3 that you have there is meant for both of the value. That's why you saw me writing 18 divided by 3 there. Okay, when you run your calculation, you ended up with 6. Okay, so this 6 here is very important because it tells you your y-intercept basically. Okay, there's 2 things that they need from you. Okay, firstly, you won't get any marks for getting this right. Okay, you won't get any marks for that because they specifically requested, they wanted the values that crosses the x and y axis here. So what you have to do is to label the 6 down, okay, and then you have to check your x-intercept here. So to check your x-intercept, that will be when y equals to 0. Okay, you can leave all these workings on the side, okay, but they won't refer to it to award you marks. Okay, for this type of question here, they only look at your graphs. They want you get the x-intercept and y-intercepts correctly. So 0 equals negative 2 over 3x plus 6. Okay, we adjust it. Okay, throw the entire 2 over 3 to the other side. So you have 2 over 3x plus equals to 6 here. And your x will be 6 divided by 2 over 3. So key in 6 divided by 2 over 3. You ended up with 9 at the end. Okay, remember, okay, try to keep everything to scale here. So maybe you can label down your 3 is here, 3, 6, and then 9 is over here. So these 2 points, okay, you have to show them that you gotten it correctly and then join it up. So my line here might be a bit crooked because I'm drawing on an iPad. Okay, but roughly this will be the answers here. Okay, you get the idea. Okay, don't follow my graph. Okay, because I can't draw the accurate line on the screen. Okay, so this will be it for section number 4, and then we will go on to the next one. In this type of question, do we need to label the graph with x and y value? Yes. Okay, because they specifically ask for crosses the x-axis and y-axis. They want you to label it. Okay, you must tell them that it crosses at 6 and 9. Okay, so the next one here, if not mistaken, usually if I don't know a question, what are the first thing to do? You have to check whether it's quadratic or not, because the graph this day that they ask you to do, right, only fall under these few categories that they were showing. They won't ask you to construct this type of graph normally, okay, and then they will ask you to draw a reciprocal graph and this type here. So whenever you saw there was a square there, okay, it's either a smiley face or a sad face. Okay, check whether it's a quadratic or not. Quadratic is smiley face. Okay, if it's negative here, like this one in A, it's a sad face. Okay. Answer your question, please. What does ratio and counter ratio means? I had it on my IGCSE paper. Can you take a snapshot of that? What do you mean by ratio and counter ratio? Okay, you can send it to me to my email or my Instagram. Okay, I will reply to you later. Okay, and then if there's no square or whatsoever, it means it's a straight line graph. Okay, then you arrange into y equals to mx plus c so that you can identify the y-intercept right away. Okay, this is to reply on Sun. Okay, and then next one is a quadratic graph. Okay, I think this one is the question that Jellies were asking. Okay, so the first thing first, when you look at the square that they gave you here, okay, so please take note on this. When it's a square, you must check whether it's a positive or negative. So like this one here, they didn't mention any numbers or being negative. So it's a positive graph. So at the first place, okay, immediately you will know it's a smiley face graph for sure. Okay, and then when the next thing that I would check is whether there's integers or not. So if there wasn't any integers, okay, that means you can assign it automatically as +0. Okay, so your graph that you're using right now, okay, will be touching 0 here for sure. That's the first thing to take note. Okay, that's your y-intercept. Okay, so with that, you can try to run your, if I were you, the next thing that I would do is try to factorize it first. By factorize, I mean assigning it as 0. Okay, I wanted to check my possible roots here. Okay, roots will tell you all the intersection. So when I rearranged it, I gotten these two results. Okay, it's like how you factorize your equation normally. So you ended up with x equals to 0 and x plus 2 equals to 0. So these two variables here will tell you the x-intercept basically. So when your y is 0, this y is 0 here, you ended up with two different points. So these are the 2 points that you were dealing with. Okay, so this will be our -2. Then you can proceed with your graph drawings already. Okay, but if you wanted to keep your graph as accurate as possible, you can find extra turning point. But I wouldn't recommend that because they didn't ask for it basically. So your graph is just like this. It just turned back up when it arrived at -1. Okay. So it should look something like this basically. Okay. This is how your graph should looks like. Okay, for those who are unsure about turning points, okay, since we are here, might as well I just show you. So you have to write this down first. Okay, everyone that haven't learned about turning point or differentiation or derivative, please pay attention to the screen right now. Okay, to find your turning point, okay, there's two ways to it. Either you are doing completing the square, or you'll be running your dy dx equals to 0. By dy dx, I mean your derivative of your y. Okay, the steps goes by pay attention to the powers that they have there and the values in front. Like this x squared here automatically is just 1x squared. So by transferring the 2 to the front, 2 times 1, and then your x, okay, the 2 is from the power that you gotten or they given to you. And then because of you transferring the power out, the power that you have right now will be decreased by 1. So let me recap the steps here. Okay, the steps goes by transferring out the power. Okay, transfer the power out, multiply with the values at the front. So this is how the 2 times 1 come by. And because of me transferring out the power, now the power will be decreased by 1. Can I not use quadratic for finding x value? Yes, you can do that. You can key in your calculator to find that as well. Okay, I'm just showing the factorized way. And who am I answering? Hold on. Congratulations, Donald. Okay. How did you get the -2, sir? Okay, it's from this root here. When I put it, okay, each bracket assign it equals to the 0. This +2, when I transfer it to the back, it becomes -2. Understand? Okay, so repeat the same thing for the one at the back. So you have 2x here. Okay, if they didn't write anything, means the power is 1. So you're transferring this 1 to the front again. So you have 1 times 2 this time around. And then x to the power of 1 minus 1. Okay. Yeah, I will solve a cubic graph. I think there's a cubic graph here, right? Is there? Let me check. Yeah, there is at question 8. Okay, you can drop by later. Or If you are doing a practice, you can practice with me together here. Rawa, we are doing it at question 8. So you ended up with 2x and 2. Okay, because x to the power of 0 will be 1. So with this, when you're looking for turning point, okay, please make sure that you are doing dy dx equals to 0. So when you put your 2x plus 2 equals to 0, you will end up with your x is negative 1. So your turning point is when x is negative 1. So this is your negative 1. And then you can check your y value by substituting. When x is negative 1, your y will be negative 1 being squared plus 2 times negative 1. So you have 1 minus 2, which is negative 1 as well. So here is negative 1. Okay. This turning point here is not necessary for this question because they was just asking for crosses x-axis and y-axis. I'm doing it to show those who haven't learned about derivative and turning point. Okay, please remember when you're trying to find turning point, there's only 2 ways to get it done. Either you do completing the square or differentiation. So this is the differentiation way where you set your dy dx equals to 0 and you'll be able to find your coordinates of the turning point. So in our case, it is negative 1 and negative 1 for the turning point over here. Okay, this is the turning point. For your reference, dy dx also known as gradient function. Okay, dy dx also known as gradient function. So when turning point is 0, it also tells you that the gradient here is 0. Okay, just for your reference, they won't really assess you on this because you are not AdMath students. So these are the typical things that they test on AdMath students. So if you didn't take AdMaths, okay, you don't have to worry about this. Okay, so the next one is question 6 here. Okay, they ask you to sketch out a graph. Okay, you have ax squared plus bx plus c here. Okay, so let's have a look. So immediately there's one thing that I would notice, which is the c. Okay, c is the value or the integer value here. Okay, so when you look at the graph, you notice that it is 30 right away. So this is the first thing that I would fill up. Okay. And then the next thing that I can do to this question is to utilize the 5 and negative 2 that was given to us there. Okay. So these 2 points has something in common. Okay. This is where negative 5 is 0 and this is where negative 2 is 0. So the normal way will be through running the substitution. Okay. So you will ended up with 0, a, and then negative 5 being squared. Adding up with b, negative 5, and then plus a 30. So you've gotten your first equation as 25a minus b, a minus 5b, sorry. And then plus 30 equals to 0. This is your equation 1. When you run the same thing, but this time around substitute negative 2 and 0 into it. So you will have 0, a, negative 2 being squared, plus b, negative 2 and 30 here. So complete your calculation, you should end up with 4a minus 2b plus 30 as well. Okay, and then from here, you can try to do your simultaneous equation. Then you get your answers as well. Okay. That should be it for this question. So I just write down the steps shortly. Then you can have a look at the workings. So substitute 3 into 2. So with this calculation, I should ended up with how much? Negative 6a and 30. That's weird. Doesn't seems like it though. Okay, let me try whether there's other way to get this done. Okay, if I were to use the same concept that I approach this question here, like how I identify the 0 and negative 2, then I should know that this is the roots that I gotten. I will end up with negative 5 and positive 2. Okay, so if I were to do that, I should know that this is my roots here. They are x plus 5 and x plus 2. Okay, and then when I try to expand this out, I will get x squared plus 5a plus 2x plus 5x plus 10 equals to 0. So I get x squared plus 7x plus 10 here. Okay, this is through the expansion. And kindly take note, okay, with this step done, you know that we gotten the integers as 10, which is totally different with what they have here. Okay, what this tells us is that we are required to readjust this 10 into 30. So what should I multiply to my 10 here to make it into 30? Okay, multiply it by 3. Okay, which means the entire thing must be multiplied by 3. So you ended up with 3x squared plus 21x plus 30 equals to 0. So your a here will be the 3 at the front, and then 21. Okay, that's how you ended up with your results here. So I think I did some mistake during my simultaneous calculation, and I took a different route lah, which is from identifying from the roots here. So the roots is by having x equals to negative 5. I transfer it back. That's how I ended up with this x plus 5 here. Okay, for those who is wondering how I get the x plus 5, it's through this. Okay, x plus 5 equals to 0. And then when my x is negative 2, I transfer it back. I gotten x plus 2 equals to 0. So this is how I gotten this x plus 5 and x plus 2 here. Okay, understand? Alright, so that's it for question 6. Let's go to question number 7 here. Another quadratic graph. Okay, but this time around, okay, as per usual, the first step is to check where did they intersected. Okay, they intersected at negative 10. Okay, so this time around, there's a special request by the question. They gave us turning points. Okay, and they wanted you to tell them where did they cross the x and y axis. Okay, so to find the turning point, okay, you have to write this thing down. X squared plus 8x squared minus 3x minus 10. Okay, readjust this into dy dx. You should get 2x minus 3 at the end. Okay, for those who wondered what happened, remember you are transferring out the power. So there wasn't anything at the front, so just 2 times 1, you ended up with 2. Okay, and then the power that you managed to transfer out, it will be decreased by 1. Okay, same goes to this x here. It was x to the power of 1. When you transfer out the 1 to the front, okay, you still get -3, and then 1 minus 1, it becomes 0, and then they will cancel off entirely. So please learn to ignore integers value when it comes to differentiation. Okay, integers will immediately be cancelled off. That's why you gotten 2x minus 3. So your turning point here will be 2x minus 3 equals to 0. So your x will be, when you run the calculation, you will get 3 over 2 or 1.5 basically. Okay, because they wanted the exact turning point here requested by the question, you need to sub in when x is 1.5 into your equation that you have there. So you just put in 1.5 squared minus 3, 1.5, and minus 10. Okay, complete your calculation. You get your turning points here as 12.25. Okay, you have no choice but to label and show them for this. So your 1.5 is roughly somewhere around here. Okay, but before I draw, I will do one last thing, which is check the intersection. So y equals to x squared minus 3x minus 10. Try to factorize this. Key in your calculator. Mode 5, 3, and then you will get your a as 1, -3, and -10. Okay, you gotten 2 points, which is x minus 5 and x plus 2. Okay, so with this, make sure you set them equals to 0 so that you know the points where they exactly intersected. So you have 5 here, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Our 5 is here. And then our -2 is somewhere around this part. Okay, then the next thing is your 1.5 that was given by the question, or our turning point here. Okay, 1.5 was here roughly. Okay, you trace it down. Okay, and then they told us that it touches at -10. So maybe you can put your -10 somewhere around here. And then you can tell them, oh, this over here is your turning point. Let's see. It is located at -12.25. Okay, because they requested for it, else I wouldn't label the turning point here. Okay, then you can start draw it out. It goes like this. Okay, just these 2 parts. That's how you get it done. Sorry for the ugly drawings. Okay, you should end up with something like this. Okay. It's a rough sketch. So if I were to deduct marks to this graph here, okay, this part here would lose some marks because it looks a bit off. Okay, if it's more rounded, okay, you will secure the full marks. Okay, quite hefty. They allocated 7 marks for this. So to break down the 7 marks, they're actually looking for something here. So your -2 and 5 must be correct. Your -10 must be correct. Labeling your 1.5 and 12.5, and then the overall graph shape. Okay, if you plotted all the points correctly, but your graph is a bit weird or crooked, then they might give you a 6 to 5 marks. Okay, so your drawings, okay, you need to practice as well. I can't teach you drawings here. Okay, so you need to practice more, then you'll be able to secure the marks for this. Any question regarding question 7? Okay, the next one that we are doing is cubic graph already. Okay, if you have question, please ask now. If no, then I'm gonna move on. Okay, so no question in the chat. Okay, then let's have a look at question number 8. Okay, question number 8 here, they were looking for the roots here in section A. So kindly take note, you're just taking each of the brackets and then put it equals to 0. Okay, you should end up with x equals to 5. And then the next one will be 2x squared minus 18 equals to 0. I'll be doing derivative shortly. Okay, hold on. Let me cover all this first. Okay, transfer the 18 to the other side. Okay, get rid of the 2. And then when you introduce square roots into the 9 there, please remember you are getting plus minus 3. Okay, so with this, you will have all 3 intersection. Okay, and it will help you with drawing it out here. So you label your 5. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is here, the first one. Okay, and then you have a negative 3 and 3. So this is your 3. And then another one is negative 3. So 1, 2, 3 here. Okay. So there's one very important information here. Okay, you must expand this out. Okay, to check your integers value. Okay. So when you expand it out, you ended up with 2x cubed minus 18x minus 10x squared, and then negative 5 times negative 18. So you have a positive 90 here. So when you readjust it according to their power, okay, this is the cubic graph that you're dealing with at the moment. And with this 90 here, you will know how it will go. So 90 is over here. Okay, you label it out. Okay, to show them that. So with this, you'll be able to know that, oh, they touch it as 90. And then this 90 might be your turning point. Okay, so I label it down like this. The graph then travel all the way down here to 3, and then it should backs up. Okay, so this is how the overall graph might looks like. Still super ugly. Hold on. Okay, then your graph should look something like this. Make sure everything is to scale. Okay, because you label all the points and stuff there. Okay, so this will how the graph looks like. And if I were to deduct marks to this, will be happening here because it was a bit crooked, and also this part, okay, a bit off, the extra parts there. Okay, that's how they nitpick on your graphs. But as long as you label the point correctly, okay, they are not asking you for turning point here, so the marks will be lesser. It's just at 3 marks here, unlike the previous question. Okay, so this is how you get your cubic graph sorted out. The second turning point, how did you find that? Okay, so the first thing here, okay, they wanted you to touch at these 3 points. So with this integer or the y-intercept, you will now know that the curve was actually shooting down like this at first. Okay, but in order to let it touch at 5 again, which means it will involve a turn when it's 4 here. Okay, turning point is actually the midpoint of these two intersection basically. So I know it's at 4. Okay, it must shoot back up in order to touch at 5 again. Hope this answer your question. Hi, Sohel. Okay. Fazana, did I answer your question? The turning point? The second turning point there? You understand already? Yeah. Okay, that's how you identify the turning points here. Okay, I'm doing derivative now. We are at question number 9. Question number 9, derivatives. Okay, I remember someone was asking about it just now. Okay, hope this will help you out with your preparation. Okay, they will do two things, or there's a few ways that they will phrase it. Okay, sometimes they will ask you about gradients. Sometimes they will ask you about gradient functions. Okay, sometimes they will ask you about differentiation. Okay, depends on how they phrase it. Okay, this is the usual way or the usual terms that you will see. Okay, derivative of y means looking for dy dx. So all you have to do is to take out the power here. So 2 times 3, you ended up with 6. Okay, every time when you transfer out the power, okay, it will decrease. So you ended up with minus 4 only at the end. Because for this 4x here, if it's just 1, okay, the 1 will be transferred to the front. Okay, so you will have x to the power of 0, which is just 1 there. So that's how you get 6x minus 4. So those who took maths, okay, this will be a piece of cake for you. Okay, and for the next one here, they gave you a specific point. Okay, asking you for gradient means they are looking for gradient function. Gradient function is also referring to your dy dx basically. So try to run your f prime here. Okay, this thing also known as your dy dx basically. So transfer out the power, you will get 12x squared minus x. Okay, so this is by transferring the cube out to the front. So 4 times 3, you ended up with 12. X to the power of 3 decreased by 1, you get x squared. If there is nothing here, it means it's 1. So when you transfer the 1 to the front, okay, you get negative 7 basically. And then x to the power of 0. So this 12x squared minus 7 here, okay, substitute your 5 into it, then you'll be able to find your gradient function when x is 5. Okay, substitute it accordingly. Okay, 12, 5 squared minus 7. You ended up with 293. That's how you identify your results for question 9 and 10 here. For those who is wondering, okay, this is actually an extra sets prepared by Cambridge. Okay, it's to let you guys practice on the latest syllabus. So if you wanted to look for the paper, the link to this paper is in the comment that I pinned. Okay, you can click on it and then give it a try. Percentage increase questions. If you did took account, okay, this will be very simple fundamentals to you. But for those who didn't, you must always remember original is always 100%. Okay, and then whatever decrease, okay, you must check whether they were asking you on the remaining balance or the whether it's from the original value or based on the balance that you have there. So you get that done, then you don't have to worry about it. Okay. Moving on to the next question. Okay, we are at slide 10 already. They are asking you for turning points now. Okay, derivative of x cubed minus 12x plus 5 is this. This is at maths or maths. This is maths. Okay, the basic one. So those who took admits, this is a piece of cake for you. Okay, because these are the latest syllabus that Cambridge updated to maths. Okay, this is not admits, guys. This is for maths. Okay, this one that you are seeing here is a practice sheet prepared by Cambridge to let you guys recaps on what are the changes to the latest syllabus. Okay, they updated the syllabus and then they added in turning points, your basic differentiations, you're completing the squares, some quadrants, and then some weird versions of simultaneous equation, and also the function graph drawings. So for those who missed the first half where I cover the graph drawings, okay, later I will send the link. I will attach a link in the comment section as well, where you can access to these slides here. Okay, so looking for turning points, they already arranged it for you. Okay, so this is 3x squared minus 12 here. Okay, remember when they ask for turning point means that they want you to set your derivative or your gradient functions or your dy dx here equals to 0. So when you put it equals to 0, arrange it accordingly. Okay, you should end up with 4, where your x is actually plus minus 2 at the end. So the reason why there's plus minus 2, please remember, okay, it's because of the square roots here. Okay. So you should end it up with 2 and negative 2. Okay, when you run the substitution accordingly back into the original equation. Okay, don't put the wrong side. Don't use your differentiated value. Okay, you will end up with 0. So substitute it accordingly, you will get your answers, okay? So your first turning point here is 11 when it's 2. Okay, and the other one when it's negative 2, you should end it up with okay, you should end up with 21. Okay, this is how you identify your turning points for this particular question here. Okay, so this is for question 11. I factorize it to figure out the value of x. 3x squared. Yeah, correct. Factorize. How do you mean by factorize? You key in your calculator the quadratic equation. Is it? Okay. Mutasim, if you use your calculator to get the x value, is also correct. Not necessary to follow my steps here. Okay, that is acceptable as well. Okay, so this is for question 11. Okay, if you are ready, you can give question 12 a try. Yeah, that's acceptable as well. Mutasim, you can do that. Okay, this is the one of the favorite question that they put. Compared to the previous paper, they added a lot of new things, and then they go more technical this time around. They will ask you to explain circuit theorem in details, like what are the rules that you use, okay, instead of just asking you to identify the degree like last time. So they go into a lot of concept stuff. So after a few calculation questions, then they will ask you some technical terms, like what's the meanings of asymptote, what is a reciprocal graph, all those details. They would start asking you on that. So this particular set here, like this question 12, also came out in the recent February-March paper, where they ask you about tangent of the graph. Okay, very tricky. Okay, give it a try, please. Okay, a tangent is drawn to the graph when y is x squared plus 3x. And the gradient of this tangent happens to be -5. Okay, then they want you to identify the, sometimes they will ask you to construct the tangent equation, which you will see it later. But this one here is asking you to identify the points, okay, which is harder. Okay, they haven't come out this type of question yet, but it is in the extra worksheet that they prepared, which means there might be chance in this year or next year, okay, this type of question might be coming up. Okay, so for this question here, things that I will do will be identify my dy dx first. Okay, identify my dy dx. dy dx is how much in this case? Okay, I will ended up with 2x plus 3. And then when my 2x plus 3, which is my gradient function, remember, other than derivative, your dy dx is also known as your gradient function. And then they said that the gradients happens to be -5. Okay, they want you to put or substitute this -5 into your dy dx. And when you adjust it accordingly, you will get your x as -4 at the end. So this is to help you to identify your point A here. So your A happens to be -4, and then they were asking for the exact coordinates, which means you need to substitute this -4 square plus 3 -4 into your calculator to run your final calculation here. So it goes by 16 and -12, you ended up with 4 at the end. That's how you identify this question here. So very important, all the concepts are shared. Okay, although they didn't mention about derivative, okay, the fact that they point out it was surrounding gradient, you must think about utilizing your dy dx concept here, okay, to get it done. So dy dx, if they are asking for turning point, then you set your dy dx as 0. Okay, but if they are asking you for gradient, remember you can always set your gradient into your derivative function as well. Yes, it's 6 marks for this. Okay, because they know that without mentioning about a derivative or gradient function, nobody would have noticed to use dy dx to get this done. Okay, it's because of the way they phrase the question. So those who are familiar with the concept, then they manage to secure the score. And those who didn't practice enough past year or didn't go through this topic in details, then they wouldn't notice this at all. Okay, this is how you identify the coordinates A here. Okay. All right, so let's have a look at the next question. Okay, this time around, they asked you to the tangent to the graph. Okay, they gave you y equals to 3x squared minus 5x plus 2. Okay, so they're asking you for tangent. Okay, very important. So those who took maths will have advantage for this because they learn about a specific formula. So it goes by FA plus F prime A and then X minus A. So this is a tangent formula that all maths students use. Okay, so let me explain what does the A represents here. Okay, the A is representing the extra X value that they gave you. So you can write that down. Okay, remind yourself that A is -1 given by the question. Okay, you saw them labeling FA there. This is the original equation. So what they want you to do is basically doing it like a function where you put in -1 as your X value. So your FA or basically fx. If you wanted to make your life easier, you can put this as fx for your own reference. Okay, it's representing the original equation where it goes by 3x squared minus 5x and 2 here. Okay, so put in when it is -1, you get -1 squared minus 5, -1 plus 2. Okay, work it out. You should end it up with 6 plus 2, which is 11 here. Okay, that's how you get 11 for your f1. Okay, and then you will saw them putting this f prime a. F prime a means the differentiated value. Okay, means your dy dx of the original equation there. So you should end it up with 6x minus 5. For those who wondering how I get to 6x minus 5, okay, please take note you are transferring out the power that you have there. Okay, and then you're transferring this 1 to the front as well. Okay, you should end it up with 6x minus 5. Okay, kindly put in your -1 into it. So you should end it up with -11 here. Okay, so with all this information sorted out, okay, time to fill in the blank. This FA is this -11. I color code it so that it's easier for you to see. And then this FA is this 11 that you gotten here. And then we have one last thing, which is -A. It's representing our -1. So when I run the substitution, I just write down y equals to 11 minus 11x minus 11. X minus -1. Sorry, So when you run your calculation, you should end it up with 11x minus 11. Did I do any calculation wrongly? Let me double check. 3x squared plus 2. Yes, I noticed I did something wrong, I suppose. 3 times 2 is 6, and then minus 5. -6, -5 is -11. And then when it's -1 here, I think I made a mistake. It should be 5 here, right? Okay, sorry, you should end up with 10 here. So when I put in 10, okay, I'm substituting the proper value now. This 10 is meant to be substituted here. The -11 comes from your f prime a, and this is your a here. So with that sorted out, you should end up with 11x minus 1 as your final answer. So very important, this tangent formula. Okay, you must remember this. Okay, this is a shortcut way that I teach my AdMath students. Okay, preferably you guys remember this as well. Okay. Alternative AdMath workings are our answer. Yes, you still get your marks, no worries, because they will accept any equivalent methods, basically, even though it's not in your what we call it, even though it's not in your syllabus. Okay, you can still use log to solve like the power questions. There are shortcuts. This is the shortcut formula that you learn in maths now. Tangent formula. It's coming out for your maths as well. And then the recent it came out in the recent paper, the February March in the India paper. Okay, very important. Please remember how to do tangent. Okay, very important. Zining, is there intensive class? Yeah, there is. Okay, I posted it up a few weeks ago. They already attended about 4 lessons, I think. Then 4 more this month, then they will go for the exams. Okay, so question 13, very important. If you are able to come back to this question again, please try question 13 on your own. Okay, test out and remember this formula here. This is your tangent formula. So for those who just came, A is the x that they gave you. Okay, this FA that I've written here is actually your basic function, your original equation. So all you have to do is to substitute this negative one that they gave, and you figure out it was 10. And then this with the dot here is your differentiated or derivative, basically. Okay, differentiate it accordingly, you will get 6x minus 5. Substitute negative 1 into it, then you get your answers. Okay, after you gotten all these three things here, okay, it's just plug and play. You're putting it into their respective space, then you get your answers here. Okay, this is when they ask you about tangent. Okay, tangent to the graph, they will always give you a specific point. So question 12 and 13 is the new way that they can test you on this. Okay, very important. Please remember it. No, there's no other way around it. Fazanat, this formula, you must remember it. Okay, very important. It will help you out in your exam preparation because it came out in the recent February-March paper. So it's not worth the risk if you already encounter it and you don't want to learn it. Okay, it will help you out in your exam for sure. Okay, try to come back to question 12 and 13 if you are able to do it. Okay, these two are the new type of questions. And question 12 here, okay, for everyone's reference, this set of questions is not prepared by me, it's prepared by Cambridge. So all these are the latest syllabus that they prepared, okay, and these are the variation of the question that they can ask. So this question 12 haven't came out, but this 13 here came out recently in the February-March paper. Okay, for those who miss out on this worksheet, then they might not be able to practice on all the types of questions. Is Logikai excluded from the syllabus? Yes. Okay, they don't ask you to construct it anymore. Why function in extended maths? Yeah, function is an extended. Okay, function is here. Function is part of extended maths syllabus. Okay, bye Dong Liang. See you later. Okay. Next one, again, identifying turning points. Okay. So they can ask you about gradient function, and then this is the last type. This one came out quite often. So ever since the syllabus changed in 2020, they has been testing you guys on turning points. Okay, I differentiated, you got an x equals to -1, gradient. Yeah, you can do that. Pushing, okay, it's the different method that you use there. It's the same thing. Okay, if you get the same results, it's allowed. So don't worry. Okay. So question 14 here is about turning points. Okay. User, I send you a link later for vectors. User, I saw your question about vectors there. Okay, I will send you a link later. You check your email. Okay. Asking you about two turning points. Okay, when it comes to this, please remember, try to run your dy dx calculation first. Because when you run your derivative calculation, you'll be able to identify your turning point by setting it equals to 0. So the steps goes by transferring out the powers that you have there. Okay, the 3, I brought it out. Then it becomes 3x squared. Okay, and then the 2, I transfer it out as well. I ended up with 12x. So for those who just came, if you don't know what's happening, okay, when you're trying to identify your dy dx or the derivative, you have to transfer out your 3. After you did the transfer, every time if the equation that you use can be transferred out, the power of it will be decreased by 1. That's why from 3, it becomes 2 here. And when it's 2, it ended up becomes 1. Okay? So this is how you get to your derivative function. And kindly take note, if it's just integer value like this, okay, you don't have to run your differentiation on it. Okay? So let's complete our dy dx here. Make sure you make it equals to 0 to identify your turning points. Okay, transfer out the x. And 3, I should ended up with 4 here. Okay, so you get 3x equals to 0, x equals to 4. So the respective points that you have here. Did I do anything wrongly? Let me double check. X squared, 3x squared, 12. 0. Okay, let me try to key in my calculator. 3 and negative 12. Okay, I get 4 and I get 0. Okay. Three x squared. Must be 0 in differentiation? No. It must be 0 when it says turning points. Okay. So when I get turning points, I get it as 0 and 4. 3x squared, correct. Negative 12. Yeah, that should be it. Then you can proceed with your calculation. When x equals to 0, your y will be 16. And then when your x is 4, okay, your y should be 4 cubed minus 6 4 square and a plus 16 here. Lukaku, there is, right? I remember I prepared a topical explanation last time. I think 2 years back or something. There is. You just check the video playlist. There is. Okay, this is the 2 turning points that they were looking for here. Okay, that's how you ended up with 6 marks. Okay, so this is the end of your turning points, your derivative, your function graph. Okay, this is the first half session here. Okay, then I have a few more questions to go through. Okay, the next topic that I'm going through is from your quadrant. Okay, after quadrant, there is 2 probability questions that I'm covering. Okay, then only I end today's stream. Okay. Why does the marking scheme portray a alternate answer? Okay, the reason why they gave you different answer there is because they put an extra x here, basically. That's why they were running a differentiation. They were running a quadratic calculation there. Okay, this is to answer Mutasim's question. Okay, if you check the marking scheme for question 14, it will be wrong because the marking scheme that they prepared for question 14 is wrong. If not mistaken, there was 2 or 3 questions in the marking scheme that they gave is wrong. So you try to practice, and then if you notice anything wrong, then you just comment in the video. Then I will get back to you. Okay. I don't know why they sometimes give wrong answers even in their older marking scheme. So is the answers correct for us anyway? Yes, this question 14 is the correct way. This one that you are seeing right now is the correct way. Okay. The reason why they get that answer is because, if not mistaken, I practiced this paper last time as well. If I put an extra X here, then I will get the same answer as them. Okay, so this will help Fazana and Mutasim on their doubts. Okay. So let's go to the next topic. Okay, I skipped the circle theorem because wasn't changing too much. They are just asking you to do the same thing anyway. So I won't be covering that. Maybe before your actual exam, where I compile and I run a marathon live stream, then I will cover it over there maybe. Okay, maybe before your paper 2 and paper 4, I will do a live stream. And then I will do weird question during the streams. Okay. So over here, I try to focus on the major changes or the new things that they added in. Okay. So in question 19 here, okay, if you are unfamiliar with this, okay, you need to get 3 fundamentals, right? Okay, which is how your sine, cosine, tangent graph looks like. Okay. If you draw the basic sine graph, okay, you need to know that this is how it ends. Okay, it ends at 360. Okay, this is a period of it. And then because of there's no amplitude or vertical translation, okay, they didn't put this in as part of your syllabus, so you don't have to worry about it. If it's just a y equals to sine x, the normal equation here, your highest point will be at 1. Your lowest point will be at -1. Okay. Okay, so with this, okay, they want you to label down the points and stuff, okay, about the turning point. So this here is your first turning point, and this here is your second turning point. So to trace their exact coordinates value, you need to know that half of 360 is 180, and then half of 0 to 180 is 90 here. And then this is 270. So when you label down the points, okay, you will get your results as 90 degree, and it was at +1. And when it is 270 degree, it is at -1. Okay, so that's how you work out these results here. +1 and -1. 90 degree and 270 degree here. Okay. The next thing is cosine 70, and then it is equals to cosine p. So this, it will place around with your quadrant concept. Okay, you need to know what's your first quadrant, your A, S, T, C. So to remember this, okay, all this initial actually has their own meaning. A means all sine, cosine, tangent are all positive. S means sine is positive only. Okay, so your cosine and tangent, they both will be negative. Okay, T stands for T is positive, tangent is positive. Sine and cosine is negative over here. And then the last one is cosine is positive, and then sine and tangent is both negative. Okay, so when it comes to question 20, they gave us that cosine 70, okay, it's over here. 0 is here. This is your 70 degree. They wanted it to be same as the other value. So 70 here, okay, it is when cosine is positive. So when I reflect it down, okay, let's say I transfer this 70 down. So this gap here was 70. Immediately when I trace it all the way around, okay, one full circle is 360. So I can confidently say that the answers of P here is 290, I think. How much? Cosine 70 is how much? Cosine 70. Okay, it was 0.34 something. When I key in 360 minus 70, I'll get the same results. Okay, so your answers here is when you turn all the way around, your piece value will be 360 minus 70. You will end up with 290 as your final answer. Okay, that's how you check your results for this particular section, or for your P here. So it plays around with your quadrant concept. Please take note, cosine 70 is when cosine is positive, and then to trace the next possible results that have the same value, okay, you will use your quadrant concept to trace it when it is at the fourth quadrant. What's the results for that? Any question regarding this part? Okay, because this is something new for those who learn maths only. Okay, and I actually have a video explaining quadrant as well. If you need help later, you can search it up. Yeah, Fazana, yes. Just by taking 360 minus 70. Then you get 290. So if you wanted to double check, right, you can key in cosine 70. Then you get it as 0.342. And then you can try key in cosine 290. You also get 0.342 there. That's how you get your answers. Cosine negative cannot, cannot, because they gave you a specific range. They wanted the results to be in between 180 to 360. And then if you were to key in negative there, right, you get the answers as well. Okay. But it's out of the range, Jaden. It's out of the range. That's why it's not acceptable. Okay. Any other question, guys? Okay. This is the reason behind it. Okay. Why it is 290. Okay, the next one, is there a method to double check or the alternative value? I mainly use Quadrant to get it done. Okay, so which paper is this? This paper is actually an additional paper prepared by Cambridge. The link is in the chat. I already pinned it there. You can check it out over there. Okay. There's no alternative method. How? Okay, you need to use your quadrant concept to get this done. So cosine positive, and then it is also positive down here. That's why your answers is for sure in between 180 to 360. Okay, 180 is here, but when you reflect it to that side, you don't get the same value. Okay, because if you wanted to utilize your 70 results here, right? Okay, you can say that you use your alternate segment. So let's say you transfer the 70 to the other side. Okay, and then you work out, maybe key in cosine 180 plus 70, which is your 250 there, I think. You correct key in 250, how? You get negative 0.342, right? So it's not exactly the same. That's why it's not acceptable. Okay. All in all, you must fall back to the range that they gave you, okay, to check your answers. Can you briefly explain question 19? Oh, question 19 here involved turning points. Okay, there isn't any changes to the things that they do. Okay, there isn't any amplitude changes. There's no vertical translation. There's no period changes. So I just draw out the normal graph. Okay, this is how a normal sine graph would look like. Okay, and then they were asking for the turning point. So these two here are the turning points. So I'm just labeling out their respective coordinates. Okay, do you think there's a difference in difficulty between March paper, May paper, October? I would say February, March are generally harder. Okay, in my honest opinion. Okay, February, March is the hardest among all, and then March, May, June, and October are the same. Okay, February, March is the hardest because they are paper for India regions paper. So it's slightly harder, I would say. Just ever so slightly. And then every time when Viet question comes out, it's always in February, March. So after you're done with the recent 3 years paper and you have time, right? Okay, it's good to go through papers from 2010 to 2014 and also all the February, March paper lah. Okay, because if you can do February, March paper, then May, June, and October, November won't be as challenging as that. Okay, if you have extra time, please do practice on those papers. Okay, question 21 is actually the same question as 29, the 19 that we just did earlier. Okay, there wasn't any amplitude or any changes to it. So you will know that when you draw the curve, it will end at 360. Okay, and your lowest point is when it is -1 at 270. And your highest point is at 90 and 1. So when you sketch it out, is an Excel paper harder than IG? The way they structure the question is different. So it's very hard to judge whether it's difficult or more difficult or not. But the syllabus are somewhat the same, I would say. Okay, so when you sketch it out, try to do it as accurate as possible. Don't draw it too ugly. Okay, first half of the graph is done. Then it shoot down to 270. And then came back out at 360. So since we are here, might as well show you how cosine graph and tangent graph looks like. Okay, so far they haven't really test you guys out on cosine graph and tangent graph. Okay, so this blue one that I'm writing down is for you to have a look at cosine graph. Okay, cosine graph will always start from the highest point. Okay, connecting to the lowest point at 180. So they went to 3 parts, touching this at 180. And then it will shoot back up at the end. Okay, this is how a cosine graph would looks like. And for everyone's reference, the last one here is tangent graph. Y equals to tangent x. Okay, tangent graph is the special ones. Did they ever ask to sketch a asymptote graph? Yes, they did. So Rava, the way that they will test you, right, will be from this one at the front here. Okay, sometimes they will give you y equals to 2x. Okay, and then they ask you to roughly sketch it out. So the same thing, you must draw out the tables and then run some substitution to know how the graph would roughly looks like. So if you practice the recent 2 years paper, you will notice it. Okay, they do ask you to sketch a asymptote graph, reciprocal graph, all those this day. Okay, it's very common now, so you guys must be prepared. Okay. So the last one is tangent graph. Okay, kindly take note, when you key in tangent 90, you get math error. So 90 is a special point for tangent. Okay, it will never touch 90 basically. So how a tangent graph will looks like is it gets closest to the dotted line, but never touches it. Okay, and then they will connect to 180. This is considered as one complete tangent graph, but depends on the range that they gave you. Okay, if they ask you to draw until 360, then you must know that your second dotted line is at 270. Okay, when you key in tangent 270, you get math error. So you know that it never touches 270, and then it shoot back down. Okay, try to draw it as nice as possible. Okay, and then complete the graph here. Okay, that's how it looks like. Okay, so this is for question 21. Okay, I added 2 extra graphs to it for everyone's reference. Pray that May, June 42 will be easy. Yeah. Okay, so tips for you guys. If you notice that your paper 2 is very easy, right? Then you must be prepared that your paper 4 might be slightly harder. Okay, so if you find your paper 2 challenging, then your paper 4 won't be as hard. Okay, so this is the trend that I noticed lah. When paper 2 is crazily easy, then your paper 4 will be hard. Okay, so just pray that your paper 2 don't be too easy, and it's fine. All right. Okay, last few questions. This one here will be testing you on your quadrant concept heavily. Okay, so let's have a look and readjust and make tangent your subject first. So when you try to readjust this, you will get 4 tangent x equals to -1 minus 3 first. Okay, you ended up with 4 tangent x and -1 minus 3. So total you will have -4 here. And when you transfer the 4 away, okay, you ended up with -1. So it's very important after you gotten this, please always check whether they are asking for tangent is positive or tangent negative. So this one here, they told us they wanted tangent to be negative. So I will write down my ASTC again, and then I will shade up this part and this part here. Okay, quadrant 2 and quadrant 4 will be the section where tangent is negative. Okay, very important. These 2 parts are the parts where tangent is negative. Okay, the reason why I draw this is because it will help you to identify your answers. Okay, whether it is between 90 to 180, you have 1 answers, and the other answers will be located at 270 to 360. Okay, so after this steps is done, then only I will write tangent inverse -1. Okay, key in tangent inverse -1 for me, please, guys. If you are still here, okay, participating in the class, please key in tangent inverse for me. What do you get? Okay, you will actually get -45. But when you look at the range that they gave us, they are not expecting any negative results. Okay, they wanted the results to be between 0 to 360. Okay, so all you take is this 45 degree as reference only. So you ignore whether it is positive or negative. Just take this 45 for your reference. Okay, very important. So I just take out the 45. I ignore whether it is positive or negative. So we draw down 2 lines now. Okay, the first line is to remind me of my answers is from 0 all the way to here. Okay, and then your second answers will be from 0 all the way to here. I have a question. Let's say I wanted to go Singapore, just take CIE A level. Is that possible? Yes, of course. A level is international qualification. Okay, The university might nitpick if you are not from English native speaker. Okay, then you might have to take an extra IELTS or TOEFL. Panchako, okay, you just have to take extra IELTS or TOEFL to get that done. Okay, you secured the grades required by the university, then get an extra TOEFL or IELTS. Okay, so to find your first answer, okay, it will be by taking 180 minus 45. Okay, and to get to your second answers here, it will be by taking 360 and minus 45 here. So your two answers that they are expecting from you will be 135 as well as 315. So that's how you get your two answers here. Okay, so 45, remember, whether it's positive or negative, it's not really that important. Okay, just take the face value of it. It's just telling you the gaps that it makes between the lines. Yeah, you can. So if you wanted to sit for A levels in Singapore, then you must look for private university that offers it. And then you take your IG results and your IELTS and then apply to their college. Complete your A levels, then you can use your A levels qualification to go any countries that you want. Okay, for those who gave me 45 just now, how do you know where to draw the line? It's a bit confusing for me. So the lines, right? Remember when I shade the parts? Okay, it doesn't matter how you draw the line basically. So I just happens to draw it at the center. Okay, it can be off center as well. It's not important on that. The main thing is you must know which part represent tangent is negative. Okay, you get the shaded part correctly, then you just roughly draw a line there. Because it won't be 45 all the times. It can be 30, it can be 60, it can be 25. Okay, you just roughly draw a line. It's for your own reference only. It just tells you the gaps. Okay, it can be 30 here, then I just place 30 here. Okay, but in our case, we know that the gap was 45, so we just leave it as 45 there. Okay, most importantly is you must get the arrows correct. Like, where are you actually looking for? From 0 all the way to the first line and 0 all the way to the second line. Is that okay, How? How to find perpendicular lines and its gradient? That is a different topic. Yeah, I don't have example here to cover that. Okay, maybe I will do it on a different stream. Okay, for today's, I'm covering all the updated syllabus. Okay, for the next question here, remember you are still trying to make cosine your subjects. So if you leave the negative cosine 2 alone, you will have 6 minus 5 here. Okay, so you ended up with negative 2 cosine x, 1, I think. So when you transfer the negative 2 away, you get negative 1 over 2. So it's very important. Again, we are drawing the quadrant again. This time around, they wanted cosine to be positive or negative. So those who are following me, okay, please tell me this value here is positive or negative. Zala, I'm not scolding you. Okay, just that I couldn't do it today because I'm trying to cover all the latest syllabus. Okay, I will do it on a different stream, so no worries. Okay, it's okay. It's good that you shared what you wanted to know. Okay, cosine is negative here, so you must know that negative means that they were referring to the second and third quadrant. So these are the parts where cosine is negative. Okay, so when you key in your calculator, x equals to cosine inverse, negative 1 over 2. you will get 120 degree. So this 120 degree happens to be located here. So you can accept it right away because our 0 was here, 90 was here, 180 was here. So different values, it will give you different indicators lah. So in this case, 120 was our directly acceptable answer. So they gave us one of the answers right away. How is it negative equals to... Okay, this part here, guys, when you transfer the -2, it doesn't change the plus minus, right? How? When you transfer the -2, it doesn't change into positive. It still remains as -2 first. So when it's -2 for cosine, it is for the second and third quadrant. Understand? Panchako, I think you have to check like which college you want to go to first. Then you contact their counselor. Then they will help you out with your application if you are international students. Okay, they will have counselors there. Okay, so your first answers was 120, and you have to look for the other one that located down here. Okay, so when you try to trace it all the way, you know that the balance here was 60, and you put your... But we get cosine value as positive. Yeah, it's fine to be positive. Okay. When you key in 120, okay guys, for Fazana, you key in cosine 120 into your calculator. Let me know what you get. Cosine 120, you get -1/2, right, Fazana? Okay. It's not necessary that, if it's negative today, then your answers must be 120. It's not like that. It doesn't work this way. Like when I get -1, my answers turns out to be negative, but my final answer is not -1. Okay, your final answer is based on the range. Okay, if they give you positive range, means your answers will be positive. Okay, so 120 here doesn't fall within the range. That's why we cannot accept it, although it is part of the answers. Okay, if you go and straight away write 120 here, you get you don't get any marks, or you only get 1 or 2. Okay, your task was to identify the next one down here at the bottom. Okay, with the 60, the balance here, I reflect it down. Your next answers will be 180 plus 60. So the correct answers that they were expecting from you was 240. Okay, so let me recap on this question here. After all the adjustment, you gotten it as -1/2. But please take note, this -1/2 is not your final answer. It only tells you which part of it or which range it will be located at. Okay, or which quadrant basically. So I know that my answers can be between 90 to 180 and 180 to 270. I know I have 2 answers here, basically. So with that, okay, I then check my 120 degree here. Okay, I gotten my first results. If you took 360 minus 120, that will work as well. Very good. Fazana, that's also correct. Okay, what Fazana did here, guys, if you are listening, okay, it's that he reflected this entire thing down. He took the x-axis as a what we call that, reflection. Okay, so you get 240 through that calculation. Okay, that's how you solve our question here. Okay, next one. Okay, this will be the last question from Quadrant. Okay, let's have a look over here. This time around, they gave you a 2 sine 3x. Okay, And the task that you have to do is to substitute it accordingly to get their respective point. So ASTC quadrant doesn't really need to be positive cosine. Yeah. Okay, it's just to tell you like which part your answer is located at and roughly what's the answers. That's all. Okay, they don't really tells you the exact value basically. So for this, you have to substitute accordingly. Like 3 times 40, what do you get? Okay, I get square root 3. And then when it is 60, okay, how I will put a link in the comment later. Okay, is to cover the quadrant concept. So there's a compilation of few questions there that might be helpful for your exam preparation. You can check that out as well. It's free. Okay, I will put all the links down in the comment section later. Okay, for these slides as well, I will share it to everyone. So you guys can check back to the comments that I pin later on or in the descriptions. Okay, with you labeling all this point down, you'll be able to start construct your results here. Okay. This type of question haven't came out, so please be prepared. Okay, they might slot this in your upcoming finals. Okay, so label it accordingly. And also one more thing, if you notice that the results like square root 3 and negative square root 3 that you gotten here, okay, you must check all the decimal points that they use at the back. So when you key in, you follow them, you get 1.7 and negative 1.7 respectively. Okay, just take follow the decimal points that they use at the back as reference. So it applies to a graphing quadratic question as well. So just follow what they gave, then you should be able to get your answers. Okay, with all this point labeled out, okay, you'll be able to construct the graph now. Okay, super ugly. Sorry for my poor drawings. Okay, I can't actually draw on tablet here. So this is how your graph will roughly looks like. And then, okay, they want you to use your graph to solve this equation, okay, which is, remember, this, they try to phrase it like your graphing quadratic question. So this type of question haven't came out, okay, ever since they prepared this worksheet here. So it's very good for you guys to practice it now so that you don't panic during the exams. So by y equals to 1.5, they're asking you to draw a line over here. Okay, I couldn't quite draw it out. Okay, it wasn't quite accurate here, but roughly you get the idea. So your answers is located at if based on my drawings, it's about 16 degree all the way up to 40 something. All the way to 44. So this two will be your final answer for this particular question here. This type of question I should expect on May, June, sort of, because this set of question here is actually prepared by Cambridge. So slowly, like this question here from the tangent and turning points, they have been coming up quite often. Okay, this one just came out recent February, March. And there is a few type of question that they haven't cycled through yet for this new syllabus. So it's good that you run through this practice here, okay, so that you expect the unexpected for your exam. Malok, I hope this answer your question. Fahmid, exam is coming up in May, June. What tips can you give to improve your maths in general? I would say practice the recent 3 years at least in terms of past year. And if you have extra time, go through papers from 2010 to 2014, because the papers, the way they phrase the question back then is trickier. Okay, it will be a good practice now. If you can go through those papers, then you'll be prepared for your exam. And also this set of question here is also very good practice. So if you have time, please try it out. Will the threshold still be low? Yeah, it is expected to be low this time around, at least for another 2 years. Okay, the threshold will be low for at least for another 2 years. Okay, because of this COVID thingy going on. Yes, it will be low. Okay. Any other question? Okay, threshold will still be low. Okay, last two questions, then we're done. Okay, so 2 fair dice are rolled. The scores on dice 2 are added to give the total. So this question also came out in the recent February, March paper. So it's super hard, and I think a lot of students couldn't do it. Okay, it's not as easy as you think. Okay, this question 25 here. So they mentioned that these 2 dice was added to give the total. Okay, so please list this thing down. Okay, write down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you didn't do this, then you won't be able to get your answers. So these are the new things that they added into your probability chapter. Okay, so it's hard, that's why I wanted to cover it. If you can, please try to do along with me. 2, 3, 4. Okay, they mentioned they added up to give the total. Okay, so you must add them up accordingly, like 1 plus 1 is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4. Okay, so this will be the first step that I will be taking. Okay, and then they wanted you to given the scores on at least one of these 2 dice is 2. Okay, calculate the probability that the total is 5. Okay, they first wanted the total to be 5. Okay, and then how many total of 5 here? were there? Okay, there was 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there was only 4, 5 here, I suppose. And then at least one of the dice is from 2. Okay, so these are the things that I'm getting at first. Okay, would you guys like to try? Like, how do you get at least one of the dice is 2, and then the probability is 5 here. Okay, so you notice that I colored all the 2 that involved in this calculation. Okay, everyone still following? Okay, I'm explaining the details. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There was a total of 11 of them that involve at least 2. And then this first part here is for your denominator. Okay, remember, don't repeat the 4 because there was only considered as 1 result. So you calculate the dots that I make here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that's why the denominator is 11 here. Okay, then they're asking you about probability that the total is 5. So I purposely make it into yellow so that I can check how many of it overlapped at 5. So there was 2 of them. So this question is 2 over 11. Very important. It just came out recently in your February-March paper. Okay. So when I encountered this question in their paper 2, I couldn't recall as well until I looked back to this extra question prepared by Cambridge. Then I realized that it was from this particular paper here. So remember, when they ask for total, you must do this thing here. Sometimes they will ask for multiply. Then you must know it's 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 2 is 2. Okay, you must run your calculation accordingly first. And then the first half of the question is always the denominator. Okay, so the first half of this, they are talking about these blue dots that are labeled. And then the second part is the numerators that they wanted. So how many of these blue dots that you label happens to be 5? Okay, so this is for 5 and 5. CIE A levels. Why don't you count 4 twice? Because 4 is only considered as 1 values here. Rango, I am doing maths, I think. Because I'm preparing my O-level and O-level students. They are going for maths and maths in the upcoming examination batch, May, June. Okay, I don't count 4 twice because 4 is only 1 here. Okay, thank you for me. That's how you ended up with 2 over 11. Please look back to this question again, and if you are free, please try your February-March paper that I recently posted. Okay, the download links and all is in the description. And then there's a few questions that I did wrongly, okay, because I wasn't feeling well. Then you must check the comment that I pinned. What do they mean by at least 2 and like the results is 2? Yeah, one of the dice is 2. What they mean by at least one of the dice is 2 means that dice 1 is 2, Okay, this one at the top is dice number 1, and then this one here, the vertical one, is dice number 2. That's what they mean, softly. Okay, so this 2 here will help you identify the denominator. You understand? Okay, at least 2 means one of the dice is at showing you 2 as the results. So you have 2 here, and you have 2 over here. So there's a total of 11 of them. Is that okay? You guys understand? And then this 2 at the top is because there happens to be 5 here. There was 2 of them, that is 5. That's the numerator there. Okay. Last question, then I will end the stream. Okay. Famid, there's actually a video that I explain probability specifically. I will try to include all the links that might be helpful in this video. You can check it back later. I will pin it down, all of them, in the comment section or the description there. Then you can check that out. Okay, very tricky. Give February March a try. Then you will notice there was one exact question, but they phrase it differently as well. You can check that out. Okay, before your exam. Okay, last question, question 26 here. Okay, they asking you about 3 adults are picked at random from those who mass 70 kg or less. Okay, so 3 adults was chosen from these particular groups here. Okay, calculate the probability that one of them is 35 kg or less, and the other 2 each have mass greater than 35. So the first thing that you should write down is to figure out what's the denominator first. Okay, the denominator here should be 30 plus 15 plus 7. So this is at the first draw. Okay, this is at the first draw here. So you should end it up with 52. Okay. And then for your numerator, however, it must follow the condition that they set by the question. They say that one of them has a mass of 35 or less. So 35 or less, there was only 7 of them. So let's say my first draw is regarding this 35 or less. And then the other 2 is that it will become 51 and 50. So the reason why it applies here is because you are involving human beings here. So every time when you are doing questions surrounding, probability questions surrounding humans, okay, every time after the first draw, automatically it will decrease because one person has been taken out. Okay. And then we have a condition of it being 35 kg or more than that. So that will be our 15 plus 30 at the top. And then this one will be 52 minus 1. That's how I ended up with 45 here. And then lastly, from 52, this time, okay, another person was taken out already. That's why it minus by 1 again. Okay. And then they mentioned this 2 person was from the same groups, which means the 45 that we have there, one of them has been taken out. That's why it is 44. Okay, students normally able to solve until this part. The things that they missed out was that they forgotten to multiply it by 3. The reason why there's a 3 condition here is because they didn't tell us what sequence are the drawing following. So they just said that one of them are lesser than 35 and the other 2 was more than 35. But they didn't tell us how was the draw being taken out. Like the first one must be lesser than 35 and the other 2 must be more than 35. They didn't mention that. So you must create 3 different scenarios where it is less than 35 and then more 35 and then more 35. Or it goes by less 35, more 35 first, then less 35, and then more 35 again. Or the last one will be more 35, and then less 35. You're basically listing down all the possible scenario here. That's why you can multiply it by 3, because the denominator will never change, and the numerator, you are just putting them in different arrangement. That's why you don't have to purposely write it 3 times. You just put a 3 at the front will do. That's how you ended up with your final answer here. Okay, this will be question 26. This question has been coming out back then from 2010 to 2014, so it wasn't something new. But those who didn't practice enough probability question might find this challenging. Okay, remember, when it comes to human being or human-related variables, they won't tell you that it is without replacement. You must set it on your own. Okay, so from 2020 onwards, it will be, you will see this kind of question quite often. Okay, and if you wanted to practice extra, you can go through 2010 to 2014. Okay, so this will be it for today. Okay, I will edit the live stream a little bit, like I cut off the first 5 minutes where I'm waiting for people to join. Then you will be able to look at the recordings. So the access to this paper is pinned in the comment. You can check that out. Okay, if you can, you must go through recent years first. Recent 3 years, from 2020 all the way until now. And then if you have extra time, then only you go through papers from 2010 to 2014. How do you figure out how many scenarios over there? I'm just rearranging it, like checking what are the possible arrangement, because there was one that was less than 35. So as long as it appeared at the first place, second place, and third place, it will now cover all the possible arrangement or all the possible scenario. Did it answer your question, Vulcan? Okay. So that's it for this live stream. I hope you find it helpful. Okay. I will pin down and put in all the helpful links in the comment section and description. Okay, you guys can drop by and check it later. Okay, so that's all for today. Okay, I think I will try to do extra during the weekend. Okay, I try my best to put in some time to do the live stream. Okay, so that's it. Okay. It's 10:30 at my time zone now. Okay, I'll get some rest and then I'll prepare for my class tomorrow. Okay, bye guys. Okay, that's all for today.